Hey, product people. I'm very happy to see you all here. And thanks to Yandex Hall colleagues for organizing this event, because every event we hold here was on a very high level. Today's topic is very complicated. When I was preparing for this event, I was thinking like maybe people will not understand what I want to talk about. But I risked, and it's very important for not only product managers, but for product analytics and product people, managers, and even developers to understand why communication is a key skill. I believe that every problem in business, in work, in everything, even in personal life, starts from miscommunication or lack of communication or wrong communication. And very important to fix this problem. And it's very good to see you here, because it's good for me to see that we are on the same boat and you understand the importance of this topic. Today we have two speakers who will describe the importance of this skill for us. They are new for our community. Yelena Muradyan, head of product at the Agentic, and Vazgen Babayan, group product manager of Adobe. And I hope that everybody will figure out why I think that communication is number one skill for everybody, and the most important skill of future. And you guys, speakers, and you all will help me with this. Elena John, the stage is yours. Let's start.
Thank you. Hi. I think forgot what I'm going to talk about today. But I'm super honored to be here today, and I want to thank everyone for taking time and for coming. So just like mentioned, we're going to talk about communication today. A little bit about myself and my background and why maybe I think I can talk about this topic. I have been a product manager the past decade, and my experience, my background kind of covers the spectrum of B2B, B2C, B2G, a lot of partnerships, a lot of infrastructure. Right now I'm in infrastructure. I started my career actually at Pixar, so born and raised there. But right now I'm at the forefront of innovation with the buzzword of AI agents. Yes, kind of like that. So anyways, the topic of communication. From the first sight, it might sound not that important and not that obvious, but communication is built throughout your entire career, and it's a long-term game. And it ties very strongly to personal brand. Hence, so personal brand, I'm gonna touch base almost in every slide. But yes, it starts with literally your image, how you look, how you sound, how you carry yourself. That sets the filter, how people perceive you and how they perceive whatever you say, your message. When I say how you look, I literally mean the way you're dressed. You have to project neat, confident, structured look. You don't really have to be the most stylish guy in the room, but the put together is the word. So we're not aiming to seduce anyone. We're aiming to be the professional and to put the attention onto your expertise and your brain. Then how you sound. Your voice, it has to be steady, calm, confident, instead of this squeaky, maybe shy, maybe fast. I have been there. I have worked a lot. I think I'm still a little bit squeaky, but still. And then the same with your energy. It has to be calm, steady. People don't like people that have a lot of body language. So it's all about confidence. And that has to be consistent. You can't be like, today I wake up and I have the energy and I have the motivation, so I'm gonna be this put together person, but tomorrow I had this party, so I'm hangover just a little bit, so let this day slip. So yes, then it's the emotional aftertaste. All of that affects on the emotional aftertaste once people interact with you. And it's very important that every interaction that people have with you, they leave the room with confidence and alignment rather than with a lot of ambiguity and confusion and doubts. Yes. And then energy doesn't lie. I think the most frequent feedback I get from people that I work with, especially my team, is the energy part. The way you come every day into the room, the way you set the tone of the room changes everything. If you're this sleepy person that is like tired all the time, so is your team, so are the people that work with you. But if you're literally this person that projects that they have Red Bull on for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and also you're on Duracell, that's a different thing. Yes, basically, people want to follow leaders who have that energy and that ambition to conquer the world. So it's not about us, right? It's also about stakeholders. I'm not going to discover anything new here. We have two types of stakeholders, internal and external. But the important part here is the context switching. The way you communicate with your stakeholders, be that internal stakeholders, that could be like your direct team, that you work with them every day, and then some cross-functional teams. Communication with the team may have some jokes, and then with cross-functional teams, you have to be a little bit more cautious. And then with external partners or customers or investors, you change the language, the tone of voice, right? So shared responsibility. This is a very dangerous place because it can either move things forward or kind of stagnate everything. So especially when you're just trying with a new team, you have to define the owners. Who has a direct responsibility for what decision or what type of outcome? That reduces the ambiguity of who should deliver what. Because let's say if everyone, and I had the pleasure of working in a team of co-founders, there were 4 co-founders, a little bit of storytelling also. They were all responsible for everything, raising, strategy, tech, and nothing ever get done. And you had to literally go and work with each of them and push forward, let's say if you're a CEO. So what's about the raising, right? Anyways, defined owners, then agreed disagreements. When everyone feels like they're the owner of the product, and they're welcome, of course, developers are welcome to share their ideas around why this button or like why this flow shouldn't be this way. But then we have to capture that decision maker, that owner, and leave the last word after them, right? Even if you yourself don't really like the final decision, I let mistakes happen, knowing that this might not be the best decision. However, this was the person responsible for this area, and they will learn. That's a bigger achievement in my head. And then ownership clarity, I think I have already mentioned. So it's important. Important tasks often gets stalled because everyone thinks they are responsible. Ensure that the last word and authority sits with the true owner of the area. And accountability is, so once you have communicated with your team what has to be done, then you have to follow up on the promises. And here, by the way, it's very important to be consistent there. Because, so what I do, especially if it's a new team, and I have to kind of train my team with my style. First of all, once everything is done, I kind of use these words where I'm like, so we agreed that these will be delivered. That kind of puts a responsibility, right? And then if we agreed on a certain time or day, then once the due date comes, very shortly after the due, I follow up. Let's say it's been an hour past the due. I'm like, so where is, let's say, the promised outcome, right? What is the long-term game here? If you follow up once, and then you follow up twice, and then you follow up 3 times, they know they have to deliver on time every time, right? But if you let this slip, yes, okay, it can be in the evening, maybe tomorrow, maybe yes, whenever you have the time, then one day you realize you agree on certain things and they never happen. So yes, again, very important. Communication pitfalls. My personal enemy, assumptions, and I learned this one the hard way. Very often, we assume that people have the exact same context and background that we have. They have the same data that we have, and the amount of information that we share is enough, right? So, or another case where, let's say someone shared some information with you, and there is 1, 2, or more assumptions, and you think that you will make the best guess and assume that whatever you assumed is the correct answer, right? So here, you have to over-communicate, actually, because it's safer to share or to ask for more context than less, because that will create more confusion and raise hidden risks, right? And when I say over-communicate, I don't mean say the same thing trillion times, no. You have to just strip your message to the essential points and ensure that people remember what truly matters instead of drowning in details. So very often meetings start with a lot of context, but essentially we all gather for like 1 or 2 touch points to discuss the very one problem that we have, but then we drill down, and at the end we leave the meeting room without any final decision. Some practices, first of all, be informed. Because, by the way, I forgot to ask, I wanted to have like a demographics. I'm so sorry I'm doing that in the middle, but that will help to also tailor my speech. Can you please guys raise the hand who's product manager? Oh, okay, so it's not even 50%. And then in product, let's say data or product designers, at least I know like 1, 2, okay, and lawyers, doctors, no? C-level? Yay, okay. Kind of, now, okay. So, yes, as a product person, or let's say as a lead who's responsible for a bigger scope, you have to build the trust by having a very deep insight of your product. Since we're IT, then that's product. If we're talking about something else, then that's that area. And the way you package and deliver that will drive the further action, right? So then you have to also tailor the depth. Executives want the crisp summary of outcomes and risks, while your engineers prefer a context and reasoning and maybe more storytelling. And why they really have to stick to that? I don't know. Maybe you have to convince them. Yes, and that really leads to storytelling, by the way. Because when you come to your team and you're like, so I have promised this roadmap, and that's it. We just have to deliver, okay, features. But why do we really have to deliver? Like, let's say we're not performing, like we're behind the roadmap. And then there goes the storytelling. For example, with developers, I would go, well, I do that. That's my manipulation tactics. You go, well, so this is, first of all, our body, right? And then why that's our body? Because if we deliver these, then these KPIs will go up. If these KPIs go up, then the company will be earning more. If company earns more and is actually growing and scaling, and we are the one team that contributes to that growth, it means that we're the cool guys. If we're the cool guys, we get the better bonuses, we get better tasks, we get more complex tasks, and you as a person who was able to contribute to that scale and to that change, you will actually also grow as a person who works, first of all, on more complex tasks, and then your title will grow, you'll become the lead, and then, I don't know, the salary part, right? So, yes. And then check takeaways. Asking people to restate the key insights is actually very helpful, and only then you realize if whatever you were trying to achieve was landed, right? So, or what I do is I'm like, okay, guys, the key takeaways and bomb, right? Just like points. Manage up. Again, probably my favorite that I have learned not that hard way, but I figured this helps me a lot. So senior leaders care most about the risks and the trade-offs and measurable outcomes. So you have to go ahead and do your homework before they even ask, right? And then, let's say when something goes sideways, it's you again who has to be ahead and start thinking about, okay, how do we resolve this? So do I have the answer? Maybe it's a technical thing, or maybe it's on marketing end, right? So it's not necessarily, you don't really have to have the answer all the time, but it's you who has to go and find the person and actually drive the action and communicate it in a way where that person engages, right? And then promises on delivery. Because we're managers, I like to think about us as like parents, and we show by our actions and our kids, they learn from us. Whatever we project, the way we behave creates the final behavior of the entire ecosystem of life cycle of your teamwork, right? So you have to be that accountability engine, and you have to not only track commitments of your team, but also track your own commitments. So if you have, let's say, yesterday, I have promised to my ML engineer that I will give him this data architecture for a startup we're doing, whatever. But then I was busy because I had a dinner, a lot of things. So he wasn't working at 11 p.m., right? Maybe he was, but I did finish my business earlier. I came home, I sat down, and I delivered by 11 something, right? I could have been like, okay, maybe tomorrow. But then that means when we agree with him on a certain deliverable, he'll be like, well, like, I don't really have to. It's okay to be like a day here, a day there, but time is expensive, right? So, yes. Influence without authority. So, managers, especially product managers, even if you are at the beginning of your career and you have you're this associate product manager who has been working for 3 months, you still manage people. They don't really report to you. They report to a guy who talks to them once in a lifetime. Maybe he's aware of their progress, maybe he's not. But it's you who sees the progress. It's you who sees how many times they go to smoke. Do they really contribute? So you kind of become this people manager, if you want or you don't. And then when the performance reviews come, it's you who will essentially go and advocate for their salaries, right? So we don't really control the team directly, but we have this influence of how the team will be performing and how the team will be growing. So that we also build over time. And then your leadership is actually your currency. Every meeting, every update and interaction either strengthens or weakens your authority and credibility, and if people will actually stick to your message and listen to you and then follow up on that, right? So again, this goes into your personal brand. And then emotional intelligence, again. So very often, emotional intelligence is not how you feel, but how you react to certain things. And in communication, in successful communication in companies, the timing, the tone, the empathy changes the whole picture, right? So let's say you have this news or piece of information and you're mad, or you want to go and defend your developer and be like, no, I know how to fix this. Maybe you have to pick the right time, the right people to be able to influence the situation correctly. So here, conflicts and the culture. Obviously, in the teams, we have different type of people with different backgrounds. Maybe if you're a bigger company, then different ethnicities. And here, conflicts are inevitable. But reframing them as a joint challenge turns disagreements into a collaboration. So what I mean, let's say your designer and your developer are not really friends, and there is always this miscommunication. So instead of finding the guilty one every time, you go okay, guys, let's maybe see what's the pattern, and maybe let's figure out what do we implement in the process or what do we remove from the process so we don't have this issue every time. And that kind of creates this message of being on the same side of the table, and that shifts the energy in the room, and everyone kind of feels like the one who should contribute, who is able to improve things. And yes, the unity, the hashtag unity. And then, yes, for global teams, again, I think it's the duty of manager to first identify the patterns of, let's say, you're a big company and you work with China, with India, and then with Europe, and then with English guys, right? So everywhere you have to, especially developers, they're these straightforward guys who are no, it's my way or no way. And then, so here you have to, again, be this mom who communicates and first identifies the patterns of behavior of these different cultures. And that can be, by the way, in the same team, right? And then you communicate that with your team and be like, okay, so listen, this guy is super introverted. So maybe let's try to talk to him with key points and only key problems that we want to resolve with him. So yes, that's again important. And then lastly, people will definitely, it's a may forget, but will definitely forget what features you have been working on. But they will definitely remember the confidence and the clarity that you have been projecting throughout your interaction. And that's, again, built throughout time, right? But also, this helps to evangelize people. That's my favorite thing. I think you succeed as a manager when you are able to evangelize people, so they follow you everywhere. And then, yes, promise keeping. Just like mentioned before, great managers are not just storytellers, they also keep their promises. If you have communicated something with your team members that, let's say, if we deliver this, we will go to Bali. Don't promise that. First of all, don't promise that. And then if you promised, try to get there. And then, yes, this personal branding around communication, you can only build with when you have the intention, the consistency, and you actually care for that. So, thank you for your attention. I hope you're not bored. This is the QR for feedback form. Please feel free. It's not my LinkedIn, but my LinkedIn is under Yelena Muradyan. I think a quick Q&A if you have guys questions.
First of all, thanks for your lecture. It was very interesting. So I have one small question. What do you think? How you can achieve trust in complicated teams, like big teams, about 100 people, or some technical nerds teams, and another? How to gain real trust with in complex situation and problematic?
Did I capture it right? How can you gain transparency or gain trust? Trust, yes. In big teams. Trust in what capacity again? As a manager? So the way I do, first of all, when I come into the new team, and I mostly work with the past couple of companies that I've worked, they were big. First of all, I come as a friend that knows nothing and wants to learn everything. And then I'm very open to learn about the company and about the roles and about the relationships. And I never assume, especially if you're in a leading role, and you have this ambition of I came and I'm going to change everything because I know everything. I will implement these new things. But yes, I think first you have to adapt to the team, know what's the internal culture, identify the decision makers, the key players, the ones that are actually contributing. And then what I do is I actually get into personal connections. So I start. One of my tricks that I love to use as a manager is actually get in touch, kind of personally, but not on tell me your life situation, right? But in a way, I care about your emotional background, let's maybe have a coffee together. So yes, so it's a lot of communication, and just like I said, being a manager is a full-time job. I'm actually the most introverted introvert But every time I step out of my apartment that I love as an introvert, I wear this manager thing that has like a lot of energy, and you actually have to communicate with everyone and get their insight rather than project what you think and what you can give. That's it. Maybe. I hope I answered.
Thanks for the answer. Thanks. You answered the question. I have one more last question.
Sure.
What about what do you think? How can beat up the language barriers through international teams? Like is it like Indian English, like European English? But most likely situation is like main team speaks on Russian or their own
It's
languages, and all the regulations, rules, just translated through ChatGPT and through into the teams. How you manage working with the international teams, like in situation when core teams have different languages in other teams?
Yeah. So, story of my life. Right now, I work for this company that has a lot of Indian developers, right? So it's a lot of English that I have to figure out during the day. But if it's text, then I don't see a problem, right? But if it's an online communication, then I do captions. That's my tip and trick. And I read the captions. And then also, by the way, Crisp has this great feature that actually removes the accent. But I think it's totally fine to clarify, just like the question before, right? I didn't really capture the word, so I can assume what was the word. Was it transparency or trust? And actually answer to a wrong question, but it's okay to ask one more time, right? So I just took some more time. It was 10 seconds, and I clarified with you. That's it.
Okay. Thanks for the answers, and once again for the lecture.
Thank you.
One quick question. You mentioned that even associate product managers, they manage people.
Especially associate product managers.
Yeah. Could you please give an example on what kind of people management they do? Because what I've seen, actually, they mostly focus on the product rather than team coordination, people management.
So...
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. No.
I'm so sorry.
That's great. That's great. I'm trying to remember how many years I was an associate product manager.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Can I just ask
Yeah.
a question to the guys? Who thinks that associate PMs are not people managers? I'm sorry. Am I the only one? 1, 2. Okay, so, sorry? Yeah, it depends, because, okay, if possible, maybe you can answer, and maybe someone else can answer to my question.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
So when I say even if you're like an associate product manager, you still manage people, it means, let's say you're a team of, I was an associate product manager at a team with 40 people, 40 data scientists, right? And then I was an associate product manager at a team with like 20 software developers, full stack, let's say, or front end. What I mean is, especially if it's like a big company or even if it's a small company, let's say you're like a team of 6 and it's you who every day interacts with the people, you plan their tasks, right? You kind of calculate their load ahead, you plan the roadmap with them. So there, you are actually responsible to, let's say, if you see your developer taking too many coffee breaks or like smoke breaks, right? It's you who has to raise the question. Or first, I would go and like talk to that person and be like, anything wrong with your health? Why you're going to bathroom so often? Maybe you need to use the insurance that we have. And then figure out, maybe have like a lunch. That's my trick. I go to lunches with my developers all the time. So I always go to lunch with someone. I never eat alone. But yes, so it's you. You have to first tackle down, was there issue or what motivates them, because very often also they get this demotivation. You have to figure out and then actually escalate that to their manager if there is like an actual problem. Maybe very often you yourself are able to actually talk to them, because they need just this communication and assurance that they're important and everything is good, and so they just get back to work. If that kind of answers, I hope.
Yeah, actually, yes. Just to add, I think that term manager very often makes a confusion, like in the product manager world. Like maybe the answer that you gave, I agree with that, but it depends on the company. There are a lot of companies when it works not like that, and product manager, especially associate product manager, they are not responsible for people.
It's not that you're responsible, but you don't.
You don't have to.
Wanting or not wanting, I'm really truly translating that from Russian or Armenian. You interact with them so often that you are the first-hand person that actually gets to engage them in work or evaluate their performance, or
Okay, now it's clear to me that it's not just a classical management, people management. So you are responsible for sometimes people, but I think it depends on the company. For example, if it's an Armenian small company, you are the PM, you are the, I don't know, PO, you are a Scrum Master, you are a mini CEO, but anyway, it depends on the company.
Okay, is Pixart big enough company?
Yeah.
Yes, so I was an associate there.
Yeah,
I was the people manager there while being an associate. But I'm not saying there is this one recipe of being a manager, right? It can be. It also depends on the manager, right? My messages in my head, which is a very tiny head, product manager, well, any manager is a people manager.
So can we say that project managers, they also people managers?
I have never been a project manager, but probably yes.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you for reminding that you worked at Pixart, because I just remember that once I was in a meetup when the speaker worked at Pixart, and he also talked about people management.
Yes,
so anyway, I fully
thing.
agree that it depends on the company. Thank you so much.
I'll give you mine.
Thank you for the presentation. So I have a special case. So I'm working with people from other countries, mostly UK, Canada, and I'm the furthest away from time zone with the people that they don't know where even Armenia is located. So I have, for example, 2 hours, maximum 3 hours with the Canadian colleagues. So how do you approach communication in this sort of setup so that you have the less time with them, and how do you optimize as an efficient communicator here?
Yes, story of my life. Right now I work for a Silicon Valley company, and I run this launchpad where I have like a lot of founders from Silicon Valley, and I have to kind of adjust my time. So it's like 11 hours of time difference. I kind of distribute my work. First of all, I live my best life in the mornings until 3 p.m. and then it's the slave time. So I start my day, they sleep, I do all the research, whatever I have to communicate. Maybe I start communication, and then let's say I make the plans. Let's say ask them what's the most convenient time in between these range of hours, because I don't know, is it a secret that you're not there? So you're like, I'm in Armenia. Yes, I communicate that I'm in Armenia. Mostly it's okay. So we kind of know everyone from my partners, because they're also not from the company. They know they can reach out to me during this time frame. That's it. And also maybe Calendly with like blocked hours. That's it. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. I think that's it. And I'll pass the mic to Vazgen. Thank you.
Thank you. So, hello, everyone. And I'll talk about some of the topics that Elena mentioned, but in a more practical way that is applicable to enterprises. Why am I qualified to talk about the enterprise space? Because for the last 10 years, I was working on a product that is work management in an enterprises. And I went from associate product manager in the same company all the way to leading all of the PMs in Armenia, currently at Workfront, part of Adobe company. So, one thing that I learned over these years, and that's an important note to say, is that there is no lack of communication, really, and the impact of communication is really huge. Bernard Shaw said that the single biggest problem in communication is that there is an illusion that it took place. In a lot of cases, it actually doesn't. You think that you communicated something, but at the end of the day, you find out that it actually wasn't communicated and your message didn't came across. And one thing as PMs that we are guilty of is that we try to use a lot of like buzzwords and fancy words that make our pitches sound very interesting to the consumers and very sales-like. But what ends up being is that you hurt your message as a result. Especially in an enterprise, there are different topics here that we are going to cover. The first one is exactly that. So how to communicate with precision and clarity. The second one is how can you just disclose the right amount of information when you communicate so that your influence is more targeted. And the third one, how do you influence the right people? How do you identify those people and how do you get your message across so that your approval is guaranteed really in the end. So we start from precision. So what is it that PMs use a lot in their communication? A lot of words such as this is simple, this is reliable, this is efficient, this is easy to use. And what happens is that the vaguer you use the words that are there, the more interpretation layers are happening and the more your original idea gets distorted before it reaches the final approver. So in an enterprise specifically, the idea that you had in the beginning will go through first stakeholder interpretation, then it will go through a management layer, then it will be summarized for an executive to easily consume that, and then you get to the decision. So what are they deciding on? That thing that went through 4 layers of translation and the summary by AI. So is that really the message that you want to get across? So now imagine if in your original idea you used a lot of these words, like easy to use, scalable, performant, intuitive. Like there are a lot of words that we use on a daily basis, but every one of these words can be interpreted in 100 different ways. So let's take easy to use. What does easy to use mean? Like every person has their own version of easy to use. For some people it's Apple, like the iPhone. It's the ease of use, the definition of an ease of use. For another one it might be Windows, I don't know. Or someone might be crazy to say Linux is easy to use, I don't know. But yeah, so there are different definitions. So the more you put those words in your original idea, the more interpretations of that idea you get as it goes through this chain. So we can play it out on a few examples here. So let's say you have this question, right? You can ask that, or as a manager, you can ask that. Someone might ask that question to you if you are a product manager, like how do you think this will impact users? Like, there are a lot of answers to this. You can say, I think the users will love this, or I think the users will hate this, or something else. How can we reframe this question so that it's more precise, so that you specifically target on what you are trying to communicate? So if we reframe this maybe in this way, like what change in user behavior would we need to see? And what does success look like? How much change is considered success for you? Now, this message really hones in on specifically that's what you are trying to change with your product. What is the user behavior that you're driving? How do you going to measure success? And that makes it really clear when you communicate with different stakeholders in this manner. The second example is, let's say you go into an executive and you pitch something to them, and then you ask, like, what do you think about this approach? If you are seeking their approval as a result of that, what do you think of this approach might get you some information, like how do they feel about it, or what are the general thoughts about it, but it won't give you the information that will be critical for them and that will block their approval if they want it to. So we can potentially reframe this like this. Like, what is the biggest risk you see with this approach, and what evidence would change your mind? Now, when you ask that question, it puts that person in the state of mind to actually also approve this, because it's now he's trying to find something that does not constitute for approval, so it's like a neat trick there. But also it focuses on the specific examples, on the biggest risks that they see about your proposal and how they can actually go in, and how can you actually go in and change that. Another example. I've seen that a lot in the business cases as we present to the executives, like our solution will be easy to use, it will be intuitive, like that's a specific like buzzwords that I see a lot. And we can switch this by this, like which specific user tasks we are talking about. So let's say this 3 specific user tasks should be completed under 2 minutes in 95% of cases. Now, about that, you might also get different opinions. Let's say the head of UX might look at these numbers and say, okay, 2 minutes is probably too long. Like, I want this task to be completed in 10 seconds. Or engineering might look at it and say, this task cannot be completed in 2 minutes. It has a background job that has to run for 2 hours. There's no way this can be done in 2 minutes. But now you are having a conversation about a specific user behavior that you want to change, and the meaning, not the meaning of what intuitive or easy to use means, but actually what the users will experience and how you can get to the right outcome as a result. And another example here is that connected to the performance. I hear that a lot as well. Our proposed solution is reliable at scale at enterprises. Now, if you tell that to a customer who has 100 million users in their company, they are going to tell you, yeah, it should work at scale for 100 million users, because that's our company, that's the number of users that we have, and that will be their expectation. Another customer might think of it as 10,000 users, or it may be concurrent usage, it may be usage all at the same time on the database based on the GET queries or READ queries. Like, there are a lot of interpretation to this. So we can say here, we can specify the load. Like, we can say that at a user load of 100,000 daily users, we expect the system perform at 99.9% uptime. And again, this is something that raises a point of discussion. Is 99.9 good enough? Because at some cases, in some companies, if you're a business critical software, you might need 3 nines after the dot, because your system should be highly available, and maybe people are dying because of it. If it's a software that is deployed in the hospital, like, you cannot really say that it can fail very frequently. So again, if we summarize this, just try to focus your communication on specifics. What are you trying to change? What are you going to measure as a result? How do you think the success looks like? These are all factors that will play in, and the idea in the end will not get distorted that much. It will still get distorted, but not that much. So, but even after all of this, you might still communicate the message in a way that does not get you the approval that you are seeking. So let's look at this example. I'm going to read it out loud here. So the engineering estimates show 3 weeks of performance work will eliminate 80% of timeout issues, while the integration feature would take 8 weeks and doesn't address the core problem. Customer escalations around API timeouts increased 40% this quarter, and our largest enterprise client is evaluating alternatives. Should we think about postponing the integration with MS Teams in Q4 and focus on performance? Now, this is a message that is really precise, right? So it has a lot of data, it has all of the information, all of the background supporting evidence, and you are asking for a decision in the end, like about postponing that work on MS Teams. However, what you can get as a result is a rejection. And why? Because the decision that you are trying to drive is buried. Like you have to listen through all of that context and you have to process all of that context before you get to the final ask. And then with that final ask, you don't even have a conviction. So it's not really a recommendation that you are making, but you are asking a question, like, should we postpone? So now the weight of a decision is put on the approver. And now the approver needs to make that decision with this limited blurb of information that you just provided to them. So they are reluctant. They are saying, okay, I might need more information to make this decision. So you already put them on the defensive there. And the why, like why should I even make that decision, is somewhere in that message, like it's in between the data and the decision that you are asking. So you have to go and again parse that content to just find what was the why, like why should I even postpone this? So we can fix that message with a few quick steps here. So first, let's deconstruct the message. This message actually contains of 3 parts. The first one is the supporting data, like what is the evidence that you are bringing into the table. The second one is the reasoning, that the escalations about API increased 40% and we have a risk of attrition from our largest enterprise account. Like that's why you are proposing this change. And the final stage here is the decision. Well, what are you trying to achieve here? The postponing of integration work. So let's reorder this. So let's say we flip the script here. We say, should we think about postponing the integration with MS Teams? Like that's, the decision goes first. Then you say, why? Because the customer escalations around timeout increased 40%. And then there is supporting data that will show what are we going to, how well have we thought about this approach in terms of the engineering time frame, the impact, and things like that. So we can even a little reframe this. So if we switch should we to the actual recommendation and say that I'm recommending that we postpone the integration because customer escalations have increased and here is supporting data if you want to dive into that. Now, with this approach, the likelihood of you getting the approval is higher because you already started from a decision, so the person that you are trying to pitch this to is already in the frame of mind to think about the decision. And everything else that you are adding on top of it kind of reinforces your point instead of them having to wait for the decision to come in. And it also respects their time. Like really the executives that are in the meetings are all busy people. You can easily see them tune out when a lot of evidence, a lot of data is being presented, they are like disconnected, and now you have to bring them back in the presentation. It's paradoxically, it also lowers the chances of questions being asked to you. Because when you start with the data, you bring in a lot of context. So now there can be questions like, how did you get the estimate of 3 weeks? Like, who did you talk to? And now you suddenly are diving deep into what is your process of estimation and who provided the estimate instead of focusing on the decision of deprioritizing the integration. Another benefit here is that if time is at an essence, if you are slotted in the end of a meeting with just 10 minutes to present, if you are cut short, you still have time to communicate the most important thing you are trying to communicate, like the decision to postpone this. And that gives you the time to just at least schedule a follow-up rather than just doing it all over again in the next meeting. And the final point here, it's less tangible really point, but it is connected to how you are evaluated as a product manager. You might hear a lot about capabilities or competencies like strategic thinking. Like what does that mean? Like there are hundreds of definitions of that, but this approach actually demonstrates strategic thinking more, because you are thinking about the business first. You are showing that you want to drive a decision. You have thought about the reasoning behind that decision, and then you have the supported data to support that. So it frames you as a more effective communicator, as a more business-oriented person. So your perception as a strategic communicator increases as a result. So after this, I'd say, how do we influence the right people? Because we talked a lot about communication, but how do you identify the right people to work with so that you can influence them? And here there is this method of cascading dependencies. I think there are hundreds of frameworks that will help out to identify the right people. I'll just go through this one. So this one is, you have a proposal. So start from the assumptions. What assumptions do you have? What needs to be true for your proposal to work? You just list them out on the paper. Your next question, for each of those proposals, who controls whether this stay true? Like, who are the people that will be responsible to make sure that these assumptions are met? Like, just try to map it out after that. Now, the next one is the interesting portion here. What would make them want to protect the status quo? Because people don't really like change. Like, when you go in and pitch something that requires them to change something in their behaviors, they are risk averse. They don't want to do extra work. So what you are pitching is trying to get them to do something that they didn't want to do before. So now, what would make them want to protect that current state that they are in? I think that's an important portion here. Just think about that. So again, on the same example, if we go here, there are 3 assumptions. What needs to be true for this proposal to work? First, engineering has to actually be able to complete this in 3 weeks, because you are pitching that all the way to the executives who need to postpone the integration. The second one is that the customer escalations that you are receiving should actually decrease as a result of that, because you might get the information wrong. Maybe the escalations are not because of that, but maybe they are because of a wrong support process, and you don't know that. And the third assumption is that there are also other stakeholders besides your engineering and customer success that has to approve this. So sales and marketing for the product should actually support delaying the integration. So these are 3 assumptions. Who controls these assumptions? So the estimation is controlled by engineering. So that's engineering manager. They control the 3 weeks time frame. They are the ones providing that estimate and eventually on the hook on delivering this in 3 weeks. For customer escalations is customer support lead. Like, they are the people who are working with the tickets, with the customers who receive these tickets every day and feel that pain every day. And the assumption 3, which is distorted on the slide, is going to be the VPs of both product marketing and sales. So let's say we went in and dived deep into various cases. What are the things that we might find? We might find that there are 4 approvers here for this proposal that we have. 2 of them are positive. So it's customer success lead and engineering manager. Both are really positive about your proposal. Maybe they even originated the proposal with you, because there are a lot of tickets that you receive, consistently timeouts, performance is bad. Engineering manager's team is consistently firefighting that, so that's a lot of pain that they are feeling. So they wouldn't want to protect that status quo. They are in favor of just changing the things and move forward. Now, VP of Sales actually promised your MS Teams integration to 3 major prospects already. So they say that this will be delivered in Q4 if you sign this multi-million deal. So now they don't want to delay the integration any further because they already made a commitment to a customer. For product marketing, they want to launch a new pricing plan. In the new pricing plan, you have MS Teams with bold written out there. So they want to launch it so that they can charge more in the consequent deals. And now they don't want to delay the launch of a new pricing plan. So these are the obvious personas. There are also non-obvious personas that influence these decisions. So let's say engineering manager always works with a lead engineer. The lead engineer is not a formal approver of your proposal, but they are the ones who has a lot of influence on that engineering line, because they are the ones giving the estimates, they are the ones being consulted every time when the engineering manager tries to go in and make the commit. They know the most about the code base. So they are this unofficial persona that you can work with and get buy-in from an engineering manager indirectly. Like that's something that you can just identify, like just look at who people look at when they make a decision in the meeting. Like that's already a clear giveaway on who they try to get an approval from. And for product marketing, they actually work with legal all the time. So legal, again, is not a formal approver here, but legal continuously updates contracts in the context of customer deals. So if you don't have MS Teams integration in the contract and then someone buys MS Teams integration, maybe legal will need to go and update the contract. So legal will be averse of that, and legal will tell product marketing that we cannot delay the launch of a pricing plan because of the impact on contracts, but legal is not a formal approver here. So what can we do to influence those people? A lot of it you can actually do in the meeting. Like in the same meeting, you can acknowledge the pain of that these people are having and try to provide solutions. What I found that in enterprise setting, it works really well when you try to communicate upfront. So you know that VP of sales has this problem, product marketing has this problem. So let's reach out to them. This is an Outlook screenshot, which we work with. But yeah, this is an example of an email to a VP of sales. Let's say you sent it out a month before you go in at actual meeting. And the things here, I'm going to deconstruct this email in several portions. So first one, with the very first message of your email, you acknowledge the problem that that team is having. So you say that, I know you have been positioning MS Teams with several prospects, and I want to make sure that we don't lose these deals, while we need to address this critical customer retention issue. So you acknowledge the problem that they have, you understand their pain, you are on their side. Like that's the first thing that you establish in that email. The second thing is you bring your problem into the mix so that they also feel empathy for your scenario. And you are saying, you know what, our largest client is actually going to not renew because of his performance issues. And as a result of that, we might lose more money than we would have gained with all of these new deals in Q4. So now the third portion of this, you bring a recommendation, you propose a solution that combines the two problems together. So you kind of suggest the best of two worlds. You say, okay, my recommendation is that we postpone to early Q1, but we dedicate the first 3 weeks of Q4 to performance. Throughout Q4, every deal that we are doing is going to benefit from those performance improvements. So we can show that our system is like reliable at scale on any other integration that is there. And we can still promise MS Teams integration to benefit from these enhancements. And you also, in the very end, volunteer to actually be on these calls. So now VP of Sales has you as a product manager going in and talking to a customer, establishing the trust between you, the company, and the customer, which is worth more than the actual deal. Like the relationship with the customer is going to be way stronger as a result of that. So that's the sales pitch. Now marketing. Like if you go to product marketing, now what they want to do is launch a product plan, right? The pricing plan. So again, you acknowledge first that your roadmap change will impact the pricing line. So you know that the problem is here, you know this is what you are trying to solve here. Second, you again bring your problem into the mix. You say, okay, this is my problem. And again, you propose a solution that incorporates both of them. In this case, what you are suggesting as a solution is maybe we can still launch the new pricing, but put a coming soon label on the MS Teams integration. So legal doesn't update the contracts as a result. The integration is still in the contract. Pricing plan still launches. You are still delivering MS Teams later in Q1. So that's just one approach here. There are hundreds of approaches that can be taken depending on the situation, on the context of a company. But this is just an example. How can you start positioning this decision before the actual decision meeting happens and try to collaboratively come up with a solution. So in summary, like try to be precise in your communication. Don't give all the information out from the beginning. Try to disclose it up front, starting with the most important information, the decision that you want to drive. And try to make this difficult decision feel collaborative. Like for VP of sales and for VP of marketing, they feel like they are part of a decision, not something that was thrown on them and they have to live with it. So they feel included. That in turn builds your trust as a PM in the organization. So the next time, let's say you are up for promotion and your VP of product asks feedback from their VP of sales. Like that's a very clear feedback that they will provide, that this person helped us out through this different situation and actually worked with the customer to make the business successful. In the end, I have a couple of bonus tips, free actually. These are really like quick tips that you can use in your day-to-day work even tomorrow. Sometimes when you talk to another PM, you get reluctance of getting a buy-in for your idea, even if it's a small thing. Like you know it's a small thing, but that PM evaluates the impact on the roadmap, they evaluate like that they need to go to talk to the engineering manager to refine this, to go into the estimation, story pointing, bring it into the sprint. Like there is a lot of process there. If you just ask one of your engineers to talk to an engineer on that team, sometimes it's just 1 hour work, so that doesn't impact anything in the sprint, it just builds goodwill and that thing works. You can unblock critical projects that way. Another one is time your asks with budget cycles. That's very critical for enterprises. When you plan a budget for the next 12 months and someone comes in after that planning and asks a large chunk of that budget, you are going to tell them, yeah, just wait for the next budget cycle. We are not going to do that now. And the final one is conduct pre-mortems. So you might know post-mortems as a method, which is when your project fails, you actually go in and evaluate why it failed. So pre-mortem is basically the same thing, but you do it in the project kickoff stage. So when you just start your project, you ask yourself and all of the stakeholders, let's say we failed spectacularly. Like the deadline passes, we failed. The company went bankrupt and it's super bad situation. What could have caused this? Now, by asking that question, you map out these risks for the project ahead, and you can help out with a mitigation plan upfront without having to just go through that and discover them later in the stage. So with that, I'm wrapping up and opening up for Q&A. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and share the feedback about the event. Thank you. Any questions?
Thanks for the lecture. It really was really practical for me and interesting. So I have rather additions than the question. I want to point out the thing about expectation for communication, because I have some experience when I have the team like on the C-level, and we are talking about like friends from the childhood. And, yo, man, do you think this feature is cool or no? Yes, but when we talk in the same way to like head of product, I think we disrespect him.
Yep.
Yeah, and he I'm waiting for more formal communication in like political style. I think it's very important to also check the expectation for the stakeholders by communicating them.
I completely agree. I think that understanding what the person next to you cares about is really important there, because when you discuss with a CEO like this feature is cool, you're just discussing. The head of product now thinks that this feature somehow will land on their backlog. So now they are kind of going into the defensive, maybe not as much and things like that. So if you understand the context of a person, like what do they care about and what is their job at the company, like what is their motivation at the company for their role, I think structuring that communication can go a long way. Like even that same question, like look at this feature, how cool it is, can be framed in a way that the head of product is actually feeling involved and maybe like head of product, I saw this feature on your roadmap. I also noticed one of the largest companies in the world working in the same direction. So what do you think about the overlaps and the competition with that large company? So now you are asking them a question, so it puts them, feels them included, they feel included as a result, and they don't go into the defensive, okay, I now need to implement this.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks again for your lecture. It was very cool. I have any really questions. So, anybody have questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation, Vazgen John. So imagine you wrote these emails to the stakeholders, to VPs, and then they disagreed and said that this is very important feature and we should launch it. What would be your next step? Would you increase this to your manager or to the CEO, or you would try to convince them? I don't know.
Yeah, I'll first try to convince them, because escalation is something you can always only use in a limited capacity. You cannot really escalate all of your problems to the manager. So I try to use it as little as possible in my toolkit. What I would do, so long as I have established that I understand their problem and I understand my problem, there is some degree that you can actually dive deep into. So when they are still rejecting, that means there might be some information that you don't know. Like maybe one of these prospects actually 20 million deals that destroys this 2 million impact on the Data Corp fictional company. So you won't know that before you actually dive deep with that person. So my first line of action will be to try to get time with that person to talk through that problem, and then already decide whether I should escalate or not, because I think I want to learn there as much as he wants to launch this.
Actually, my point here is to if you don't escalate, I'm not saying to escalate, but if you don't escalate and then you make the decision to not postpone it, so that means that that person is making the decision or driving the decision, and then later on, the CEO can come and say, why, if we had this critical issue, why you didn't tell me about this?
Yeah, in this scenario, it's basically formal approval by a committee. So you have several people on the committee approving this. Or definitely you need to know about any decision that you are making to the same level that is making the decision. So if you go to the VP of sales for approval, your VP of product should know about the direction that you are proposing and the decision that you are making. Now, if they also agree with the VP of sales, that's a decision already, you go in with that path. But you wouldn't just work directly with everyone on the VP level without letting your VP know about this first.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for the interesting presentation. So my situation is this: I'm working in an IT company which has a progressive mindset, but its primary client is a conservative Armenian bank. So I'm, as a PM, always deal with this cultural difference between IT and bank enterprise company. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when I propose some ideas, provide data, I always it always takes too much energy to come up with some decision. So is it PM's role to mitigate this cultural gap, or are there any ways how to deal with this kind of situation?
So if I understand correctly, bank is your client and you are a software company that works with bank as a client?
Yeah, it's kind of a client, and it's kind of a company of a bank as well.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, but they are it's like an internal tool, let's say.
Yeah.
Okay. In that case, yeah, it's PM's job to sit there in between the customer, which in this case is internal, but yeah, it's still a customer, and the engineering team that is building the actual product. Now, the way you work with them might differ. So right now we are we are really an agile company. We work in sprints. We do really like not upfront planning. But one of our clients for which we are developing a large amount of software right now as a closed alpha is a heavy waterfall agency company. So we try to come out with a balance there. So what we did there, we do not communicate like a large roadmap to them. What we communicate to them is a 90-day plan. So it's kind of in the middle ground. If we previously were to plan for 1 month ahead, now with them we need to plan a little extra to give them as a client more confidence into what we are delivering and our delivery plans. We still adjust those plans on a rolling basis so we can still refine the solution, but the client gets the confidence that they have this plan for 90 days and they always know about things coming up later on. So I'd say that can be one tactic on how you can work with them. The other can be if you can find users from the bank who are frustrated with the current solution and kind of get them on your side to test things out and show to the decision makers that you know what, you actually have people from your organization who would love to test it out and do kind of a rollout, a small rollout, like iterative rollout.
Thanks a lot. It was helpful.
Okay. Well, if there are no more questions, we have some food over here, and I'll pass it over to Armen now.
Thank you, Vazgen Jan. Thank you, Yelena Jan, for your speech, for your preparation, for your time, and for this performance. I hope it was useful for everybody. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everybody. And let's start networking session. Thanks.